Hello. So, this is a beginner to intermediate class, aka gentle to moderate. So, what that means is we're going to start with a gentle foundation, and then I'm going to give options for more challenging things. So, for those of you that are beginners or want a gentler class, stick with the first variation. So, sometimes I give two, sometimes I give three options. It doesn't, because I'm up here doing it and demoing it for everybody just so they can see, doesn't mean that's where you should be. So, for example, if we're doing a low lunge and we get here and I say, okay, bring your left arm up and do this, do that. And if you want more, pull the arm back and you do that and it doesn't feel good, then go back to where we just were. And sometimes I'll give a third option and I'll say, if you want even more, then sweep that other arm up and go back even further. That doesn't mean you should be doing it. So it's options. So everybody can kind of develop their own practice. So make sure you're listening to your body, backtrack if you need to. If you're like, oh, I can do that, I'm going to try that. And then you realize, oh no, I can't, or I don't want to, it doesn't feel good for my body. So listen to your body. It's built in stages so that everybody can have exactly the practice that they want and need. Okay, so remember that as you go along and honor where you're at today. Maybe you could do something yesterday and you're just too tired today, or you hurt yourself yesterday and you've got to be a little more careful. So just today, it's beginner's mind. Okay, so with that said, we are going to start in downward facing dog. Okay, so just come on into down dog, and I call it down dog play. My coffee, because it's morning here for me. I haven't finished my cup of coffee yet. Um, and that just means anything. There literally is no right or wrong. There's nothing wrong you can do. It just means start moving the body, get in down dog, wiggle those hips, pedal those feet, rock back and forth between plank and down dog. It's literally just playing around, just exploring, starting to feel what's going on in the body, noticing how the legs feel, the shoulders. So just close those eyes as you do this. Again, you don't need to see anything. Your feet, they can be wherever. I'd rather have them a little too wide than too close together so you have room to move. Same with the hands. I'd rather have them too far apart than too close together so you have some room to move here. All right, let's all look at our hands. So you want your hands at least as wide as your shoulders, maybe a little wider, and spin your hands so that your index finger, your first finger is aiming straight towards the front of your mat, and then plant your whole palm into the mat. So press as much of your hand into the mat as you can, like you're trying to make a handprint. And then bend your knees a little and push your hips as far away from your hands as you can. Draw the belly into the spine and just look back in between those feet. And then go ahead and shift forward, drop those knees down to tabletop. So knees under the hips, wrists come back a little bit so they're right underneath the shoulders. Nice inhale into cow. So arching the back like you're trying to touch the back of your head to the back of your hips. And exhaling into cat, rounding the spine, really pushing up through the lower body. So really scoop that tailbone under, round out the low back, tuck that chin in, really trying to round out the whole spine, especially the low back. So that's our exhale, that's our cat. Inhale, back into cow. So as you come into cow, you're pushing away from the floor, pulling the heart forward, back of the head to the back of the hips. And as you come into cat, it's like the forehead and tailbone are drawing together and you're pushing that low back up to the sky. And just go back and forth with the breath. Close the eyes if you can. And just feel the breath and body moving together. Okay, let's go for one more. I'm actually going to get rid of my yoga mats because they just move around. Okay, so now we're going to go connect those two movements, that downward facing dog and those tabletops. So we're in tabletop. So we're going to inhale into cow, exhale into cat, tuck the toes, lift the knees up to downward facing dog. Don't readjust into the perfect down dog. Just stay wherever you're at. Take a nice inhale there, press back. Exhale, drop those knees back down to the ground. Keep your toes tucked. Pause there. Finish that exhale. When you're ready to inhale, go back into cow. Inhaling into cow. Exhale, cat. Right on up through to downward facing dog. Inhale there. Exhale down. Finish that exhale. Inhale, cow. Exhale, cat. Right on up through. Inhale. Exhale down. Finish that exhale. Inhale, cow. Exhale, cat. Back up to down dog. And let's play again. Okay, so let's get those feet a little wider than the hips. Root those hands like we did before. And let's take that right knee, spin the feet to the left. Both feet just kind of spin a little. Your heels lift off left, so you're just kind of on the balls of the feet. And then take that right knee over to the left underneath you. Pull your left hip back as you peek underneath that left arm and sink the left heel down. So you're twisting the hips, pulling the knee underneath you and kind of peeking underneath that arm. Hi, guys. And then spin the feet in the other direction. So lift those heels up so you can spin on the balls of the feet. Push back. Take that left knee underneath you, over to the right as you sink your right heel down and pull that right hip back, peeking underneath that right arm. Breathe. And come back to center. Press it all back. And bend those knees. Walk your hands towards your feet, towards the back of your mat. Widen your feet so they're at least as wide as your hips or a little wider even. Half lift when you get there. So straighten out those legs, straighten out that spine. Inhale and exhale, hinge at the hips. Saying our first hello, a little deeper hello anyway, to the backs of those legs. So hinge as much as feels right and good for your body. Nice long spine, nice flat back. Maybe you grab the backs of the legs to increase the stretch a little bit. Keep pulling forward through the heart, bringing that chin in a little bit so you have a nice long line going all the way up from the back of your hips to the back of your neck. The knees can be soft. They don't have to be all the way straight. Go ahead and bend those knees a little more. Sweep the arms out to the sides and rise up all the way. Reach up high. Bring it to the heart, bend the knees. For Staffa Brahman. So we do this a lot in my classes, like every class, because it's just a really good warm up. Okay, so again, we have those feet a little wider than the hips so we have a nice solid foundation because we're going to drop down into ragdoll in a minute. So nice bend in the knees, hands at the heart in Anjali Mudra, prayer. All right, as we inhale, we straighten the legs, reach up high. So inhale, reach up, look up at the thumbs, arms out to a T, hinge at the hips. Keep going until you feel that stretch in the backs of the legs. Inhale, half lift, bend the knees a little bit. Sweep those arms forward alongside the ears. So reaching from the sitting bones to the fingertips. Inhale, reach. Exhale, let it go down to ragdoll. So a deeper bend in those knees. Drop those arms down. Drop that head. Let the head fall to the floor. Let the arms fall to the floor. They may hit the floor. They may not. If they do hit the floor, just kind of cross them over, but then let them go. Let them drop heavy into the floor. If you're a little higher and they're dangling, that's okay. Just let them dangle. Or you can grab the elbows if you don't like how it feels for them to dangle. You can kind of grab the tips of the elbows there with your fingertips and let the arms drop. So just letting everything get heavy here. Let the head drop a little more, maybe give it a little wiggle. Soften the jaw. Let everything melt. Imagine your face is just melting, softening. Shoulders, arms are heavy. Feel those shoulders release and soften and let go from the weight of the arms. Same with the head. Feeling that upper back and neck start to release.
from the weight of the head gently pulling on it. All right, we're going to take our time coming up this time. So drop those arms if you're holding them, pull the belly button way into the spine and slowly roll up. Really scoop your tailbone under and round out that low back on the way up like we did in cat and come up nice and slow. If that hurts your low back or you feel pain when you do that, then come up with a flat back. Stretch those arms out to a T when you get up there and then bring it up, back to the heart, bend the knees. Okay. So we're going to do it one more time, just kind of flowing through, not worrying about the breath too much. And next time we're going to do it with the breath. So inhale up, arms to a T, hinge, keep going, keep going, keep going till the body says, whoa, that's enough. Bend those knees a little, sweep those arms forward alongside the ears, reach from the sitting bones to the fingertips, gaze in between the feet. Inhale, reach. Exhale, let it go, ragdoll. Let it go, let it go, let it go. Go, 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 go. More, 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 more. There's always more to let go of. Just when we thought we let go of that last little bit, boom, a little something comes back at us. So let go. Keep going, keep letting go, keep softening, keep letting those arms get a little heavier, a little more loosey goosey, so to speak. Same with the head. All right, again, we're going to take it up nice and slow this time. Pull that belly button way into the spine, roll it up vertebra by vertebra. Arms are dangling, head is falling into the chest, all the way up until you're standing. Once you get up to standing, stretch those arms out, lift the head, and then bring it up and back to the heart. All right, we're going to do it with the breath. Okay, so nice, big, big, big breaths, long, extended breaths. So we have enough time to get into and feel each pose. So we get a little bend in the knees, hands at the heart, nice big inhale up, reach up, straighten the leg, draw the belly in, hinge at the hips, exhale. Big inhale, bend those knees, sweep those arms alongside the ears, reach, exhale, let it go, ragdoll. Finish that exhale all the way. When you're ready to inhale, one big long inhale all the way up, arms to a T, and then exhale, sweep those arms up, bring it back to the heart, bend the knees. Again, inhale up, big long breaths, exhale, hinge. Big inhale overhead. Nice, releasing, exhale, let it go, let it go, let it go, let it go. All exhale, no more air. When you're ready to inhale, roll it up, big inhale up, and exhale back to the heart, bend the knees. One more time at your own pace. If you forget the movements, if you forget what's what, because it's the first time you've done it, don't worry about it. Just keep breathing and moving. That's our only goal right now, is to move the body, flow, get it warmed up, and breathe. Landing back at the heart with bent knees when you're done. Open those toes. So again, make sure your heels are at least as wide as your hip joints, maybe a little wider. I'd rather have them too wide than too close together. Toes open to the sides, bend those knees deeply, drop the bottom down to the ground. So my bottom does not drop to the ground because I have a knee replacement. So my knee does not bend enough to get me low enough, but the full pose is with that bottom hanging right down here, almost to the floor. So if you can do that, awesome. If not, if you're like me and you just can't quite get there, it's okay. We have to work a little harder to not arch the back though, if our bottom doesn't drop down. So you might have to scoop the tailbone under and pull the belly in so you're not arching the back. Take those elbows, regardless of where the rest is, and push those knees on open. Lengthen the spine, pull the thumbs towards the heart, and find the breath in Upavishasana, yogic squat. A lot of people call this malasana. This is not malasana. Garland pose is it's a bind. I'm not going to show you it right now because we're not warmed up enough for it. All right, dive forward till those hands can hit the floor and walk them back forward towards the front of your mat until you're back in downward facing dog. Let's go ahead and get those feet on railroad tracks. So you'll hear me talk about railroad tracks a lot for those of you watching that haven't taken one of my classes before. It's been a while. What I mean by that is imagine each foot is on a railroad track and that those tracks are about 6 inches apart, 5 inches, 6 inches apart-ish, depending on how wide your hips are. And if it's off a half an inch, who cares? So ish, right? So 6-ish inches. So get those feet on those railroad tracks, spread those fingers, press on back. All right, root down into that left heel, right foot up off the floor. So you can lift it a little bit, you can lift it a lot. Okay, try and keep the hips square. So try not to open up that right hip. And just sink down into that left heel as you press back, and only lift that right leg as high as feels good without opening the hip. So keep the hip aiming forward, kind of square with the other one. Find the breath. Look back at that left foot, the left big toe. Inhale, exhale, bring it down. Other side. Sweep that left leg up. Root into those hands, press back, draw that right heel down, square off those hips, only lifting that left leg as high as feels right and good for your body. Breathe and bring it down. Drop those knees down. Take them just a little bit wider than the hips, not much, about as wide as the hips. And then stretch those arms out long into extended child's pose. So big toes come towards each other. Knees are just a little bit wide. Draw that belly in as you sink the whole body down into extended child's pose. Find the breath, let the head relax. If it hits the floor, great. If not, it's okay to just let it relax. Now go ahead and let that belly relax and take a nice big deep belly breath all the way down to those sitting bones, like you were trying to get that breath to reach all the way down to the tip of those sitting bones. And slowly lift up, shift forward, and just let those hips dip down a little. So as you let the hips dip down, push away from the floor, squeeze the shoulder blades together, lift the chin if it feels okay. And then pull the belly in. Use that core to pull your hips back to the heels. Let's go back and forth. So inhale, lift up. Exhale, let those hips settle down a little. Inhale, push away from the floor, lift the heart and chin. Exhale, bring it back all the way. One more time. Inhale, lift up. Exhale, let those hips settle down. Inhale, push away from the floor. Squeeze those shoulder blades, lift that heart and chin, and exhale. Bring it on back into our extended child's pose. Okay, let's walk those hands forward a little bit so your bottom lifts away from your heels. So if your bottom was already kind of away from your heels, then stay there. But if your bottom was almost all the way to your heels, then walk those hands forward a little bit so we have some space between our bottom and our heels. And then go ahead and walk those hands over to the left. So right off the edge of your mat, inch those right fingertips as far away as you can. Keep inching them, and then bring that left forearm to the ground. So your elbow and your forearm is on the ground, kind of outside your shoulder. And use that forearm to start pushing your body over to the right, sinking down, pulling back. Your hand might slide a little bit, but don't pull back so much that your hand slides a lot. Push over into that right side body. Pull your right hip back. Let your head kind of hug inside the arm. Close the eyes and find the breath. Getting into the outside of that shoulder, the side body. And shift back over to the left so you can release that. Walk the hands over to the other side. So again, kind of starting, so we have room to pull back, right? We want a little space between the bottom and heels so we have room to pull back. Inch those left fingertips forward. Drop that right elbow down to the ground so you can use that forearm to start pushing your body over to the left. Square off the shoulders, so level them off so that left shoulder comes down to meet the right shoulder so they're in line with each other as you push over into that left side body. Pull the left hip back, let the head rest inside the arm, close the eyes, and find the breath. Let's take it back to center.
So same thing with the bottom, just a little bit away from the heels so we have room to pull back and down. So bring that left hand into center, right hand on top. So you're just stacking the hands on top of each other. Scoop the tailbone under. So tuck that tailbone, pull that belly way up into the spine and pull the hips back as you sink down. Let the head relax inside the arms. Find the breath. And lift up, shift forward, switch hands, bring that other hand on top. Scoop the tailbone under, pull that belly way in as you pull the hips back and sink the body down. So you're drawing that bottom back towards the heels as you sink the whole body down. Let the head relax, soften the jaw. And lift up, shift forward, bending the elbows and dropping them down to the mat. Interlace your fingers. Scooch those knees right in underneath the hips. So get your elbows under your shoulders, knees under the hips. And stretch that left leg on out behind you. So on the inhale, we're going to lift the leg, look up. It's almost like it's almost like cow and cat with an extended leg. So inhale, lift the leg, look up. Exhale, squeeze in. So draw the knee to the chest like you're trying to touch your cheek and knee together. Push away from the floor as you do that. Inhale, stretch it out, lift up, look up. Exhale, let's throw a kick in there. So on your exhale, draw your heel in towards your bottom and then squeeze into your tight little ball like you're trying to touch the cheek and knee together. Okay, so inhale, stretch it out, lift up, look up. Exhale, kick and squeeze. Squeeze, squeeze, squeeze. The next time you squeeze in, finish there, squeeze, and release that knee back down to the ground. If those elbows started sliding apart, get them back in underneath those shoulders. Press away from the floor, draw the belly in as you stretch that other leg on out. Nice inhale, lift up, look up. Exhale, bend the knee, kick, and squeeze. Finding your rhythm with the breath again. And the next time you squeeze in, finish there, squeeze, squeeze, squeeze. And release that knee back down to the ground. Inch those elbows towards the knees until you can bring the arms along the sides into child's pose. So depending on your knees, depending on what you have going on, will depend on how close that bottom gets to the heels. What we're looking for more is to get in a position where we feel like we can tuck in and the arms and shoulders can drop heavy and relaxed, like ragdoll. Think ragdoll in the arms. Soften the jaw and face and just let go. Feel those exhales help the shoulders and arms get a little heavier. All right, let's slowly roll it up, lifting all the way up onto those knees. So you're standing on your knees. Okay, ankles are right behind the knees are right underneath the hips. So get those knee joints right underneath those hip joints. And let's bring the fists on the back of the hips. So they're aiming towards each other. Elbows squeeze together, shoulders squeeze together, gently pushing the fists into the back of the hips, just gently, just enough to keep them over the knees as we squeeze the elbows and shoulders together and lift the heart up to the sky. So squeeze those glutes, buns, scoop the tailbone under a little bit as you reach that heart on up to the sky. Draw those elbows and shoulders together. Feel free to flip the fingers down if that's available, or up if that's available. Find the breath. Maybe the head goes back if it feels okay. Hold the belly in. Use that core to very slowly lift you up and forward to tabletop. Back to hands and knees. Shift those hips from side to side, left to right. Nice inhale into cow. Exhale, cat. 2 more. Okay, let's scooch that left hand forward a little bit and swing that right arm open. So press away from the floor, reach for the sky, and take a nice inhale. Exhale, thread that arm through underneath you, diving down to the shoulder, let the head rest down. So we're bending that left elbow deeply so that arm can come all the way through. If your hips have to push back a little to get down to the floor, that's okay. That's going to be our exhale. Inhale, open back up, all the way back up. Exhale, thread it through. So you can just stay with this. If you want a little more, if you want a little inner thigh stretch, you can bring that hand down for a minute, kick that right leg out to the side, toes aiming forward, and do the extended leg variation. So you're getting a little more hip and inner thigh. When I do that, I can't quite get that shoulder all the way down to the floor, and that's okay, right? So find that right place to be. If extending that leg out is too much for you, then just keep it underneath. Okay, the next time we thread through, we're going to pause halfway and land on the forearm, the elbow. Okay, so we're on that right forearm. And then you can kind of pick what you do with that left hand. You can tent the fingers kind of right. I've almost had my hands touching each other, and I'm tenting the fingers, making a teepee out of my hand to push myself into a twist. So I'm using that hand to push myself into the twist. You can bring the left arm around the back, palm facing out, if you have enough leverage to push open with that right arm. You can also extend that left arm. That's too much for me with that leg extended out. Find the breath wherever you're at. If you've got that leg extended out, pull the right hip down to see if you can twist open to the left anymore. Breathe, 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 breathe. Slowly release, planting that left palm on the ground, pressing back up to tabletop. Bring that knee back in underneath you if you've had it extended out. Inhale, cow. Exhale, cat. And downward facing dog. Pedal the feet, rock the hips, find some movement. Again, this kind of down dog play. There's no right or wrong. If you want more, we're going way too slow for you. We're taking time getting going. We're going to get going pretty quick here in a minute. I want to get a nice warm up start, but if you're like, I need more, do some of those leg lifts, do some of those knee to chest crunches here. You can turn this, you can kick through to lunge and drop the knee down and come into Anjaneyasana. You can get really playful here. So for those of you that have a little more experience and you're a little bored with how slow we're going, pick it up. This is your opportunity to kick it up a notch, literally kick it up, right? So those of you that are new, and you're not sure what to do, I promise there's nothing bad or wrong you can do as long as it feels okay for your body. So let's take a moment to finish that up. So if you're doing something that requires you to do both sides, go ahead and make sure you're evened off, and then we'll meet back in downward facing dog. Let's take it back to our tabletop. Walk those hands in, rise on up to the knees. Sorry, just want to make sure when we rose up to the knees that I was even, that we weren't doing something. Okay, so yogi's choice. If you know how to use, I'm not going to take the time to instruct blocks because there's a lot of people that may not have blocks. So if you have blocks and you know how to use them for this baby camel, feel free to use your blocks. If you don't have blocks or don't know how to use them here, then just use those hands on the fists, or fists on the back of the hips again. Okay, so take a moment, use your blocks or even your heels if that's available for you. Okay, that's a lot. Listen to your body. We haven't done a whole lot of back bending. I've got really long arms, so that makes this accessible to me this early in my practice without doing a whole lot of back bending. So take a moment, hands on the back of the hips, on blocks, or if you're lucky, maybe fingertips on the heels. Find your breath wherever you're at for Ustrasana. Kind of like a baby camel though. Core slowly lifts you up and forward back to our tabletop. Once you get there, pause, don't do cow and cat, please. Shift the hips from side to side, left to right. And then make a nice big circle with the hips. So you're literally just trying to draw as big of a circle as you can with those hips. Other direction. And we're back to our tabletop. So make sure those knees are under the hips again, wrists under the shoulders, and we'll do that other side for our thread the needle. So scooch that left hand forward a little bit. Wait, wrong one. Other one. Scooch the right hand forward a little bit and swing that left arm open. So nice inhale, exhale, bend that right elbow deeply, dive it down all the way to the ground, threading that hand through, palm facing up, and then open back up. So do that a time or two before you kick that leg out to the side if you did on the other side. So you're only kicking that leg out if you did it on the other side. I'm going to pause and kick that leg out just because I did on the other side. So I'm staying even and then coming back into it. Oh, yeah. All right. So the next time you open up, pause there so we can all land together. And then we'll thread it through to the elbow, that forearm. So take a moment to get on that left forearm. And then whatever you did on the other side with that hand. So if you use tented fingers to push that right shoulder open, do that. If you brought the arm behind the back and did that, a block under the hand would be awesome. Or if you extended the arm, find the breath wherever you end up. And slowly release that right hand back down to the ground, press back up to table, get that knee back in underneath you. Now, our cow and cat. Inhale, cow. Exhale, cat. And yogi's choice, child's pose. That's the one we're kind of curled into a ball and the arms are along the sides, or extended child's pose, where arms are extended out where we were before, or downward facing dog. Again, if you're like, could we please do something? Come on up into down dog, do some planks, do some side planks, right? Do a 5-pointed star side plank, get playful, make this your moderate practice. This is your opportunity to get a little something more in, or not, right? Based on where you're at today. All right, so if you're doing something that requires both sides, go ahead and finish up that other side. And let's all meet in down dog on railroad tracks. So get those feet on railroad tracks, those 5 to 6 inches apart, root those hands. Make sure your hands are at least as wide as your shoulders or a little wider. Press back, as far back as you can. Draw the belly way into the spine and go ahead and float that right leg up. Square off the hips. Lift the leg as high as you can without opening the hip. Draw the left heel down. Look forward at your right thumb. Bend that right knee. Curl in like you're trying to touch the knee to the chest. Shift forward and kick that foot through. It's not going to get all the way through to the thumb for many of you. You're going to have to grab the ankle and give it a little help to get the rest of the way into low lunge. So just take a moment and look at your feet. Make sure the feet are still on railroad tracks. So you're not too close to the center line. Okay, and then bring that right hip down. Come on up to fingertips. So your fingertips are right under your shoulders. Lift that back knee up. Press back through the heel. So you're reaching through the heel, reaching forward through the knee, letting the hips come down. Hips are in line with each other. Fingertips can stay under the shoulders. If they don't reach the floor, you can use blocks. But if we're in a good position here, we don't really need our hands. It's a little more challenging, though, to take the hands off the floor. Gaze is inside the foot. So find a home for those hands, either fingertips under the shoulders or on blocks, arms along the sides into airplane arms. You can interlace behind and squeeze and even rise up a little if you want a little more moderate practice. You can even get crazy and bring the arms up and interlace overhead instead. That is a lot. Okay, so listen to your body, find the breath wherever you're at. Maybe you rise up, but the hands are on the thigh. Maybe that back knee has to drop down. That's okay. Find the breath wherever you're at. Fingertips back to the floor if they're not. Back knee drops down, top of the foot comes with it. Rise up, start twisting to the right. And you can either use the forearm, the left forearm outside the knee or on the thigh, and you can swing that right. Let's all start there. So that left forearm is outside the knee or the thigh, and then we swing that right arm open. So you can stay here and breathe. This is a lovely twist. I like this because this gets into the upper back a little bit more. You can keep that arm extended or drop it down and try and get on the outside of that left leg. That is a lot. Listen to your body. You can stay here, or you can bend the elbows and dive down a little bit and come into prayer. Okay, so we end up here. Okay, but if we end up here, we don't want to be hanging out way over here over this thigh. We want to be able to come back in line with the hips. So we want our head still in line with the hips. So just keep that in mind as you decide where you're going to be here. Now, maybe you tuck those back toes and lift the knee back up. Maybe not. Maybe not. Find the breath wherever you're at. And if you're in prayer and you want a little more, you can try extending those arms. That's a lot. We want to try and keep our head in line with center if we're going to do that. Breathe. That is not for everybody. Remember what I lectured you about in the beginning of class. Come back to prayer if you're not. Come back to center, fingertips to the floor. Drop the back knee down if it's up. Oh yeah. Come on up to those fingertips. Use blocks here if you have them. I forgot to get my blocks out here. Really? Very handy. So if you don't have blocks at home and you're going to do yoga on a regular basis, I really highly recommend getting them. They're, $5, $10 a piece, and they're super handy. So if you do have blocks, they're up on the tall side. We're walking them back until that right leg is all the way straight. Okay, so if you don't have blocks, you're up on fingertips, you're keeping the fingertips right underneath the shoulders, and you're only walking the fingertips back as far as you can, keeping a nice flat back. So we don't want to have to curve the spine to keep our fingertips on the floor. I would rather have the knee bent and have a nice flat back and have you kind of end up here than having that leg straight and you're all curved in the spine, because then we lose the effectiveness of the hamstring stretch. So just take a moment. If we have those blocks, they're great because they give us length. They allow us to get that leg all the way straight, and then we can hinge from there. So take a moment. We're looking for a nice stretch in the back of that right leg. And of course, if you don't need blocks, if you're flexible enough, you can always ditch them. All right, let's bend that front knee, tuck the back toes under, lift that knee up, and start hopping forward. So hop that back foot forward, walk your hands forward. You can flip the blocks down on the low side so you're grabbing the thin, long edge of the block. Or again, if you don't have blocks, you're just using fingertips. Shift forward until that back leg can float up. Square off the hips, keep a bend in that right knee. And then lengthen. So push away from the floor or blocks, get the arms long and straight. Square off the hips. And then see how straight you can get that right leg. Reach through the left heel. Stay here and just work on this, or feel free to lift that right arm up off the floor so you're reaching through the left heel and the right fingertips. If you're dying for more, feel free to bring those arms along the sides into airplane arms for this warrior 3 variation, or you can extend them overhead. Just take a moment to find that just right place. Breathe. Okay, bend that right knee deeply, fingertips back to the floor. Drop that back foot down. When it drops down, make sure it's on the railroad track and then step it over to the left just a little bit more, so that when you turn your toes out a little bit and sink your heel down, your heel is now on your railroad track, but the toes are kind of falling off of the track. Rise on up. So when you look down, you feel like you could easily slide your block from your front foot straight to the back, and it wouldn't hit that other, it would it would just barely hit that foot. So you've got the space in between your railroad tracks is in between your feet. So you can get this left hip nice and square to the front of your mat. So those back toes are only turned out a teeny bit, just enough for stability. Sink down into that left heel, pull the left knee back, get that leg nice and straight and strong so you feel these quads working and those hips come square to the front. Now bend that right knee, if you can, over the heel. Scoop the tailbone under while you work hard on keeping that left leg straight. Pull the belly button into the spine. We want to start to feel the front of that left hip. So if you're not starting to feel a stretch here in the front of the hip, scooch that right foot forward a little bit more. Really work on scooping the tailbone under and pulling the belly back and keeping that back leg straight. Find the breath, find a drishti. Drishti is a focal point, something to gaze at. And then sweep those arms up alongside the ears into warrior one. So this is our new modern warrior one. The traditional, the old way. There are many issues with the old way. I'm not going to go over it right now, but just know there's a method to my madness. Inhale, reach up. Exhale, release. Interlace those fingers behind the back. Squeeze the shoulders and elbows together like we did in our baby camel. You can even gently press the fists into the center of the back of the hips if that feels okay. You can just work on that. Just work on that chest opening, that shoulder opening. If it's available, this is not for everybody, lift the heart and chin into a back bend. If that's too much, go back. Just work on squeezing the elbows and shoulders together. Breathe. Trying to open up our psoas, our iliopsoas. Slowly release. Hands to the hips, straighten the front leg all the way so both legs are straight like scissors. Make sure that left hip is aiming straight forward again so the hips are nice and square to the front of your mat. And then hinge at the hips, keeping both legs nice and straight. It's a little bouncy, so go slow. Keep that left hip pulling down so you've got nice level hips. It's nice and level back here. If those left fingertips touch the floor, great. If not, again, if you have a block, it's awesome here. And if you're a little more flexible, of course, you don't need blocks. But we want that nice flat back again. We don't want to round the spine. So pull the heart forward, hinge at the hips, and explore this stretch, pyramid pose. Okay, bend that front knee deeply. Scoot your blocks off to the sides if you're using them. And hop forward to the front of your mat, railroad tracks. Half lift, inhale. Exhale, hinge at the hips. Nice flat back. Hello, legs. Bend the knees a little, sweep the arms out to the sides and all the way up, hands to the heart. Anjali Mudra. Beautiful. Inhale up. Little back bend if you like, only if it feels good. Exhale, dive it back down, right back to where we just were. Half lift, inhale. Exhale, bend those knees deeply, plant the palms, step the feet back to plank. So look back at your feet, make sure they're on their railroad tracks, wrists under the shoulders. Bring those hips down, scoop the tailbone under slightly. Inhale, exhale, knees down, lie down. Inhale, cobra. So draw those elbows in, pull the shoulders back, squeezing the shoulder blades together. Press that pubic bone down into the floor, squeezing those glutes. Just press your chest away from the floor as much as is available. Hips stay on the floor. Keep those hips glued to the floor, at least the pubic bone, and keep those shoulders pulling back and down, opening up the heart space. Maybe lifting the chin if it feels okay. This is just as much as a back strengthener as a back bend. Come on down. Tuck those toes, get all 10 toes nice and tucked. Push straight up from the floor, like you're doing a push-up. And then push those hips back to the heels. Keep those toes tucked under, especially that big toe. Subtle little tuck of the tailbone as we pull the belly in and pull back and sink the bottom towards the heels. And then back up to our downward facing dog. For that other side, yes. Remember, we only did one side. We got to do that other side. Float that. Uh-oh. I switched sides halfway through, so let me make sure I'm doing the correct side. So I think it's left leg rises, hopefully. Draw that right heel down. Press on back. Look back at that right big toe. Square off those hips. Press back as far as you can. Hard to keep the hips square here as you press back. Lift the leg a little higher. Look forward at that left thumb. Bend the knee. Start to curl in like you're trying to touch your knee to your chest. Shift forward. Kick it through. Give it some help. Grab that ankle, that calf, and get it the rest of the way. And then look at that back foot. You might have to hop it out to the side a little bit to get back on your railroad tracks. All right, let's find that low lunge that we found on the other side. So some of you were on fingertips, some of you were on blocks, some of you were in airplane. Some of us interlaced and rose up. Some of us dropped our knee down. So see if you can remember what you did on the other side and match it on this side. Find your breath wherever you're at. And slowly release those fingertips to the floor. Let that back knee come down. Rise up a little bit. Twist to the left. Bring that right arm outside the thigh. Okay, so we started with the forearm and we opened up that arm. So open up that left arm. Praying to God where I'm telling you the correct side. That's the problem with going from mirror image to not mirror image. Okay, so we're working on this twist here. Find that breath. Stay here. Or if you came into that prayer variation, you can do that. But again, to get into prayer, we lean over and get over that thigh to get the elbow outside the knee there. And then we have to push ourselves back to center. Find that twist, find that breath. Again, trying to think about what you did on the other side here. You extended the arms from prayer. Give it a go on this side. Keep that breath going. And slowly release. To center, grab those blocks if you have them up on the tall side, or come on to fingertips and start walking those fingertips back. Start walking the blocks back until you start feeling a nice stretch in that left leg. And then hinge from there. Right? And so again, it's okay if your knee is a little bent and you're on fingertips. You can still, if you work these ribs towards that thigh and kind of keep them glued together and just push your hips back from there, you're going to get a nice stretch, whether the leg is all the way straight or not. But if we have those blocks, again, it kind of gives us just some space to get all the way back wherever you're at. Find the breath and just check in. Am I getting a nice stretch in the back of that left leg? That's our goal. And to keep breathing, to stay present. If we're holding our breath, chances are we're pushing a little too hard. All right, let's bend that knee, walk it forward, scoot your blocks off to the side. Or if you flipped them down on that other side, so you're grabbing the thin, long edge of the block and used them for that warrior 3 variation, feel free to do that. Tuck those back toes under, lift the knee up. Start hopping that back foot forward, walking your hands forward until you can float that back leg off the floor. That back foot. Okay, keep a nice bend in that left knee for now. Come on up to fingertips or use your blocks. Square off the hips, straighten out that right leg, reach through the heel.
Again, keep a bend in that left knee. Gaze in between the hands. Find the breath. Stay here and just work on getting that left leg as straight as you can without opening the hip. Feel free to extend that left arm out, up, straight forward ahead of you. So you're reaching from the heel to the fingertips. And if you came into any other variation like airplane arms or the full pose with the arms overhead, it's funny, this is my stronger leg, but I find it's harder to do. Mhm. Fingertips to the floor if they're not. Drop that back foot down. Look where it landed. Make sure it's on your railroad track. Walk your hands back and then step it out to the side just a little bit more. So when you turn the toes out a little bit and sink that heel down, when you rise up, that heel is on your railroad tracks. So again, just kind of look down. Imagine that space of the railroad tracks, those 6 inches or so, still being in between those heels. And then go ahead and start working on getting that right hip square to the front. That back leg is super straight and strong. So sink into that heel and push the knee back. You want to feel those quads working. And then that left knee lands over the heel. And if you're not getting a stretch in the front of that right hip, scooch that left foot forward a little bit more and work on that pelvic tilt. So that tailbone scooping under slightly, but not allowing that back knee to bend. Belly pulls into the spine. So this whole lower belly from the pubic bone to just above the belly button is really working hard to pull back to get that stretch. Find the breath. Sweep those arms up alongside the ears. For warrior one, Virabhadrasana. Eka. I was gonna say Dwi, that's 2. If you interlaced and extended, feel free to do it on this side. And then release those hands behind the back. Okay, so we interlaced behind, squeeze the shoulders and elbows together. And then come into wherever you came to on the other side. So if you gently press the fists into the back of the hips and came into that back bend, do that on this side. If you didn't, then don't. Just work on squeezing those elbows and shoulders together. Breathe. And slowly release those hands to the hips, straighten that front leg all the way. Square that right hip to the front of your mat again and hinge. So nice straight legs like scissors as you hinge at the hips. There can be a little micro bend in that front knee if you need to for stability. Keep that right hip pulling forward. It's almost like we feel like our right hip is pulling forward and our left hip is pulling back, but really we're just trying to keep them even with each other as we go. I love a block underneath that right hand if it's available as we explore going deeper. And again, if you don't have a block right yet, that left hand on the shin and the right hand on the upper thigh can help. Find that breath, exploring your pyramid pose. Bend that front knee, walk the hands forward a little bit, hop that back foot to the front, railroad tracks. Half lift, inhale. Exhale, hinge. And all the way up to the heart. Beautiful. All right, let's have a seat. There we go, thank God. I did a practice here the other day and I did some stuff I haven't done in a long time. And it made me really want to teach a moderate class, like a challenging moderate class. So maybe I'll throw one of those up for you soon too. But in the meantime, we're going to slow it right on down. So have a seat. Excuse me, sorry. Let's come into cross-legged, crisscross applesauce. So don't tuck in the meditation pose or try and get those feet really close. Let them move forward a little bit so the knees can drop. We don't have to be in a perfect pose here. It's more about
If you're really tight in those hips and cross-legged is hard for you, scooch those feet forward a little bit. Even scooch them, so that the knees are wider. Play around with those feet a little bit so you feel like you can at least sit up a little bit. So I don't care so much about where the feet are at as long as you can sit up straight. Wiggle those sitting bones back. Think of, for those of you that know fire log pose, think of fire log in the legs, but the feet are on the floor, right? So the feet are scooched forward a little bit. Okay, let's take a nice inhale into cow. And exhale into cat. 2 more. And next time you inhale, come back almost like you're coming into cow again. Hinge forward at the hips, keeping that heart lifting, that chin lifting and reaching. Almost feels like you're in a little bit of a back bend as you come forward. You're not, it just feels like it. Your spine is actually straight, or we have to work hard to keep it straight. Keep hinging, keep going till the outsides of those hips say stop, or those glutes, wherever you feel it, till the body says stop. How about that? And slowly release. Let's sweep that left arm up. Nice inhale, exhale, side bend. Come on back to center. 1 cow and cat. Inhale, exhale. Inhale, sit up tall, and exhale, twist to the right. So that left hand comes over outside the right knee to help you push open into your twist. Head stays right above the center of the hips. So we're twisting right from center. We're not leaning in any direction. If it's available, you can inch those right fingertips over towards the left edge of your mat to try and get more into that upper back and shoulder. Breathe. Come back to center. Inhale, reach that right arm up again. Exhale, side bend. And then come back up, bend the elbow and bring the hand behind the neck, inching the fingers down the back, like you're trying to touch your upper back with your fingertips. And then reach up, grab that elbow with the other hand, pull the belly in, pull the ribs in so you're not arching the back, and then pull the elbow back in towards center. So what happens when we do that many times is like our ribs pop out and we end up in a back bend. So really resist that, really pull in. Almost feels like you're trying to scoop the belly in and keep that rounded as you pull the arm back. If you're really tight in this tricep or the shoulder, you're not going to get it pulled back all the way. And what I mean by all the way is like, back behind the head here without arching that back. So you can stay here and just work on this, or you can reach that right elbow up as you come back into a side bend. Find the breath. And come back to center. If you're in the side bend, bring the elbow forward and down. Let's switch legs. Bring that other leg in front. It's going to feel funny. One cow and cat. And then inhale, lift that heart and hinge forward at those hips again. Nice flat back, just like we did before. Keep that breath going. Come on, back up. I had to stop and think. Reach the right arm up. Nice inhale. Exhale. Side bend. Stay open, reach, breathe, notice. Come on back to center. Inhale, get tall. Exhale, twist to the left. Bringing that right hand over outside the knee. Roll that left shoulder open. Adjust so you feel like your head is right over the center of those hips, so you're not leaning in any direction, and then twist from there, maybe inching those left fingertips over towards the right. Maybe not. Maybe that's too much. Breathe. And come back to center. Reach that left arm up, side bend.
trying to, sorry, you guys. We did the side bend on the same side both times, or if we did it, yeah, it had to be this way. It had to be over this way because we did the elbow. So it was the opposite side bend. That's why I tell my trainees, don't worry, you're going to screw up your entire life. It's okay. I've been teaching forever and I still mess up lefts and rights. All right, let's bend that left elbow, reach those fingertips down the upper back, grab the elbow, pull the ribs in, pull the elbow back as far as feels okay, and you can still keep those ribs tucking in. And then bring that elbow over towards center. Keep the ribs tucking in, reach up through the elbow and breathe. Stay here. If you came into the side bend on the other side, give it a go. Keep that breath going. Come on back to center if you're not. Bring that elbow forward and down. Hands fall to the knees. Nice inhale into cow. Exhale into cat. And then roll right on down to your back. Hugging those knees right on into the chest. Give a little rock from side to side, Apanasana. So I was trying to keep this to an hour and I think I'm probably going over already. So we're gonna wrap up here pretty quick. So think about any other movements, stretches, any more twists. We could do a bridge. Our back is plenty warmed up for that. We could do a reclined butterfly. We could do a happy baby. You could just kick the legs up and kick them out to the sides for an inner thigh stretch. So just take a moment to find something that feels right and good for your body. And then when you're done with your movement, let your body find that just right place to be for your final relaxation. Don't skip this part. This is the most important part of our practice. So coming into Shavasana or any other pose that feels right and good for your body. Our goal here is to be comfortable for a minute or two. 5 is where we're supposed to be, right? That's why these 75-minute classes are a little easier to get all that time in for our relaxation. But let's take the time we have. Close those eyes if they're not already. And find the breath. Nice, slow, long, deep breath makes its way in. Let everything relax. The arms get heavy.
The shoulders, feel them just melt into the floor. Feel the entire torso from the shoulders to the hips, that entire backside, all the way down to the buttocks, just melting, sinking, dropping. And feel those legs relax a little more, feeling every muscle, tendon, ligaments, and joint from the hips to the toes. Just letting go. There's nothing left to do or be in this moment. We truly can just let go. We have the support of our mat. Whatever comes up, let it come up. Whatever fades away, let it fade away in this moment, just this moment. Feeling the breath in the body. So I'm gonna end with a variation of the 3-part breath. So bring one of your hands on your upper chest above your heart, and bring your other hand down on your belly, right over your belly button, give or take. And just start feeling the breath in the body. Feel the breath in the hands. Trying to get the breath equal in those 2 parts. So you feel the breath equally in both hands. Focusing on nothing more than the feeling of the breath in those hands. If you want to add mantra, feel free. I like to add something about expanding. So on this one, as I inhale, I simply say to myself, I am expanding. On the exhale, I say, I am releasing. You could say softening, letting go. Instead of expanding, you could say opening, evolving, whatever verbiage feels right for you. But see if it feels okay to add a phrase to the inhale as you feel it expand, and a phrase to the exhale as you feel it release. So I'm going to leave you here with this. Those of you that can have the time to stay here for 5 or 10 more breaths, please do. For those of you that need, and whenever you end, whether you stay here for another 5 or 10 minutes, make sure you end your practice in Anjali Mudra and bowing to yourself and saying thank you to yourself for showing up to practice. Namaste.